Let's talk about the team building.
Yeah.
Is it so? Here, my question is: if the intent is to team build, is to create camaraderie and bonds within members of the team, between members of the team, is that a retrospective?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily that intent. I would say it's to inspect how you are working as a team.
Okay.
Maybe bonds are built. Maybe not. Maybe we instantiate that, this is a conflict that we're going to keep having, and we should probably focus in on how we're going to stop having that conflict. But I think it is looking at the artifacts of a team and the way the team works together and inspecting each of those things. So this could be your working agreements, your definition of ready, your definition of done, your development process, your build process, whatever that is. It might be your team space, your working hours, how you interact with each other, all of those things that they have to work together throughout the course of your iteration in order for you to produce something that's valuable.
There's an old adage in the lore of retrospectives that says, we inspect the process, not the people. So how do we do this without making people feel like this is a witch hunt and we gathered all these people to talk about, this is a team building thing, but really it's just Steph is so incredibly painful to work with.
There are safe ways and unsafe ways to facilitate these retros with the team. I like using the process to get to the people problem because I always want to assume positive intent. So let's say Steph never shows up to our stand-ups. I'm going to first inspect what's wrong with the stand-ups that Steph can't make it. I'm not going to assume that she's not showing up because she doesn't want to or because she hates us all. I'm going to assume, even if that's true, I'm going to assume that the stand-up is inconvenient to her for some reason. And we're going to say, what could we do differently with the stand-up? Do we need to have it at a different time? Are we in person? Are we virtual? How can we do this differently so that everyone can be here? Because I want to believe we all see the value in the stand-up, and if we don't, we should talk about what the value is. That's very possible. And a lot of times that comes out. If a team is having a pain point around a ceremony or an event, it's because they don't necessarily see the value to it.
Is it cool in a retrospective, this team building retrospective, to say, we're gonna inspect why it feels like Steph isn't getting any value out of the stand-ups?
I'm an awful team member.
You're the worst. It can be. I would still probably leave it more open-ended first and ask if anyone wants to share like that, because psychological safety is going to be paramount for any of these conversations to be useful. That has to be there. And some teams, very high psychological safety, and we can say, hey, Steph, why do you keep not showing up? That sucks, and it makes me feel bad. Can you show up? Yeah, I've seen teams at that level, and Steph, has her reasons or doesn't, and she apologizes and tries harder, or her reasons are valid, and we do something different. Other teams, there is no safety, and the only weapon, there's some unsafe language, the weapon a Scrum Master has to use is the process.
Tool.
So the tool the Scrum Master has is the process. So let's inspect the process and figure out if the process can enable our people and empower people, and if they still don't want to, after we have ensured the process is catering to all their whims possible, then I think that's probably a different conversation, and it's going to be contextual of whether you can have it in the retro in front of the whole team, or maybe start outside of the retro and then maybe bring it into the retro, maybe not.
I've seen a good team building retro around just our working agreements, right? Like, are they working for everybody? Sometimes when teams get together and they initially do their working agreements and they don't revisit them for a long time, people didn't feel comfortable enough to really say if the working agreements would work for them or not. Like, the timing of the daily stand-up is way too early for me, and I'm not home yet. So dialing in from the car sometimes seems like, do I dial in from the car, or do I just not show up, and it seems disruptive when I dial in late. I'd rather not dial in at all than dial in, right? So I'm making these decisions when really I could have just said, hey, is there any way we can move that by 15 minutes? And I'll make it.
Revisiting those team artifacts, I think, are so important after a team has a couple sprints under his belt.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, in all our team liftoffs, we always build our team charter and all our working agreements, and it's the most obvious stuff. It's, let's be respectful of each other. It's like, of course, we're going to be respectful of each other, and let's care about delivering value. In a month or two, I'm going to have some actual things that matter. And so I want my team agreements to be about our pain points and the stuff we don't quite have figured out yet.
Yeah, once we understand the actual constraints.
Exactly. So you need something at the beginning to deviate from, but just understand you're going to immediately deviate from it once your reality steps in, and now we actually have to start working together.
Or when we add a
I
new
like
person.
that. It's so, what's that?
Or when we add a new person.
Yeah. I do like the idea of having a retrospective based on a practice. So we not necessarily the creation of working agreements. It's a practice.